So our little home is on a very busy road, and it's intense. I've been working for 2 years now and trying to figure out vegetative ways of dealing with the amount of pressure that the sound and smell of all these trucks and traffic create. And I thought I'd share some notes. I waited till a rainy Sunday evening, which is when hopefully there's the least amount of traffic. When cars and trucks drive by, I'll just be quiet so that I'm not trying to fight for the audio. And in the meantime, I'm going to break down what this all is between us and the road and what its intended purpose is. So there's the road that runs east and west. This is the northernmost point of our property. There's a ditch here, and then our whole site is a gentle north-facing slope. And so this is luckily the lowest point in our landscape. If it was the highest point, with all the runoff from the road, I'd have to either design some swales or a way to shunt all the water away from the road, or think about moving. But on the lowest point, it's something we can work with. And you may see an area in here that looks familiar. Behind the now greening out material is our chicken yard, which is to the north of our home. And this first wall of plant material, so I went super seriously dense with everything I've planted. We've got spotted alders every foot along the northeastern corner, with curly willow every foot heading southbound, and Nanking cherries just on the inside. So this will be a nearly impenetrable wall of green with some snacks in there on the inside, so that the outside can fix nitrogen and absorb toxicity from the road. This line here is all tulip or hybrid poplar cuttings that have been stuck every foot, so they'll continue to grow outward and I can prune those. I've got miscanthus grasses growing 1 foot to the south of that, which will turn into really dense green. And just on the inside of the miscanthus, between the fence and the miscanthus, are actual keystone trees. There's some wild plums, there's another alder, there's bur oaks, there's pawpaws, there's Carpathian walnuts, there's apricots that are planted. They'll be able to get the sunlight, and then this wall of 12-foot high miscanthus grass will be just to the north of them, protecting. If I come in here, you'll see it's a little chaotic right now. Well, it'll be always increasingly chaotic, but here's a plum. There's a bur oak. These are all young. They're just getting started. There's aronia, there's smoke bush. This is another alder. But this gives us an opportunity to actually have a cropping vein in here of trees. Associated to the fence, at every post or so, have been planted hops. So the hops can climb the fence. There's also cultivar grapes on the inside. And I've woven in the prunings, my wife and I wove these together, of the old miscanthus, just to have even more structural blockage between us and the road. So now we're talking about a finite physical layer, or a static physical layer, a vining layer that's climbing up through the fence, a layer of trees and shrubs that have some space to evolve and form a canopy, a layer directly to the north of that of grasses that are inedible but are able to deal with pollution and toxicity, and these are them just getting started. These will be 12 feet this year. They don't spread very far. And then another layer directly to the north of a tree layer that can be chop and dropped. And you can see there's some diversity. This is a curly willow that I stuck last year. There's Maximilian sunflower, which also gets huge, and we won't eat. And interestingly, the wilds chose to give us a poison hemlock in the ditch, which I'm leaving as well. It's more biomass, it's a nectar source for bees, and it's a very compelling plant to have around. to learn from. If you see this growing in your ditches with the purple dots, do not eat it. It will kill you. But boy, is it beautiful. You can see there's also nitrogen fixers added in periodically. This is a pollarded black locust I dug up from the hedgerow. More Maximilian sunflower patches coming up, comfrey, to draw up nutrients to feed such a high density system, and then some elderberries popping up in the wettest spot. Our chicken yard has a huge swale running through it that gets inundated with water. When that overflows, it tends to come through here. You can see it in the hops. They're way bigger where the water flows through. So elder is an opportunity to suck up more water. From the ditch up is garlic with the intention of leaving it as a perennial just for the beauty of it, and Viper's bugloss. These puffs here, I have no idea who these are. Sasha put them in. I'm really excited to see what they do, but they're perennial ditch plants. And then some nice bulbing flowers. We even put mullein and red clover right at the road line to help decompact, protect from erosion, and provide nitrogen. So the whole thing is packed. The inedible elements more facing the toxicity and junk of the road, the potentially edible and interesting things happening beyond the miscanthus grass. Let's look at the other side. So we just looked at the western side of the driveway, and I missed a ton of stuff that's in here. It's actually packed with a lot more. We barely touched even on the herbaceous layer. But the more physical vertical elements are what was most compelling to talk about now. And I'll do a follow-up video in the summer. This will be so green you can't see through it either way, which is the goal. And on the eastern side, we've got another whole bunch of beautiful herbaceous happening. And then these are the curly willow cuttings that were stuck in May of last year. And I went big. I went for 4-foot high cuttings. And in our historic drought, they were able to not only root, but put on a ton of growth. And so the curly willows are the dominant vertical wall in here. It was a little bit more sparse than I'd like, so I stuck poplar cuttings wherever there were gaps. So these are filling in where I felt as though the willow was not as dense as I'd like. And that's the tallest element that's going to be here. And what I'll do is continue to prune them to only be about 12 feet tall so they get extra dense in the middle. And I'm not worried about these getting big with the greenhouse because they are to the north of the greenhouse. So if anything, they protect from winter winds. There's also valerian and rhubarb, Jerusalem artichokes, elderberry, more valerian, rhubarb. So there's all sorts of herbaceous and shrub layer elements added into this. There's redbud, there's wild plum, there's aronia. So there's a ton of species and structural diversity in here. Probably in total, from the last 20 feet of our property to the road, there are about 200 trees planted. So that'll block something. We'll see. It's better than building a brick wall, I think. It just takes a little longer. And then so this last garden bed, I figure, well, we still have space, but I don't want to be eating this from anything this close to the road. So the southern side of this bed, which has the sheltering and protection from the ever-expanding willows, can be used as a propagation space. So I have a ton of hardwood cuttings that I'm propagating in here that will grow for a season and then be dug out and moved to cleaner soils, purer spaces to get into production mode. We can see there's raspberries, there's more aronia. The aronia is just about ready to flower. So this will be a very beautiful living, increasing in size fence as time goes on. You can see some hazelnuts planted out. This one, interestingly, this one chewed on by rabbits, 2 feet to the east of it. This one in beautiful shape because it has carpet of bee balm, which is kind of a nice trick. There's even a chestnut in here, why not? We've got mushrooms that are detoxifying the soil. They just showed up. All of our soil is just piles and piles of wood chips decomposing. There's maybe 40 cubic yards of wood chips in this area. I don't think you can overdo it with wood chips, and I think the plants would concur. More hazelnuts, more aronia with companions of perennial onions, aronia, blue false indigo bush, Nanking cherry, black currants on the edge, even some honeyberry. And then we get into a whole other realm where we get into the actual gardens where we're producing food for us to eat, where there are now trellises and all sorts of fun things going on. That's for another video. But for now, documenting in the early spring, while it's still possible to see what's going on, the vegetative layers of defending our viewshed, our quality of air, and our watershed from the pressures of this road. Way more things happening with irises and comfrey and agretti, but that's maybe getting on a little too much. We'll do another video. If there's interest in me going through and literally talking about every plant in here, let me know and I will. But the basic pattern is understanding the light, understanding the pressures of the fumes and the sound that we're trying to defend from, and designing multiple layers, each of which can absorb some of it. We'll look at it again in the midsummer to see how it all looks when it's really going crazy. Thank you for watching. I hope you can find ways to enjoy living on a busy road too.